So I wanted to show you guys a new plugin by Pitch Innovations. Now, this plugin has a standalone version and also has an effects version. Both are valid depending on what the user really wants to use it for. So let's start out with the regular version, or I'm gonna call it, that's what I'm calling it, but it's actually the standalone. Now, they have built-in sounds. You can see them all right here. Kind of like just presets basically. And you can import your own sounds, which is kind of cool. These are the patterns. There's 8 patterns that you can have. And these letters, or numbers rather, and symbols represent what's on your QWERTY keyboard. So the whole concept of this plugin is that you can create these cool rhythms using just the QWERTY keyboard and not having to have a MIDI controller. Though you can use a MIDI controller, and you can see that right here. They break down the triggers. I'm going to call them triggers because that's what you're doing, is you're triggering the sound, right? So each one of these can be either slowed down to half time, quarter time, or double time, right? And then you have 2 sections here. It's still going while, even though I only engaged it one time. That's something, I don't know if that's a glitch or something in it. I'm still unsure on that one. I would turn it off, but let me see if I can put on something else. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's kind of weird that it does that. There's 2 different skins. So there's this one, depending on what you like, or the dark one. I usually roll with that. You can change the size of it. You can adjust the internal tempo or use the one in your DAW. And then you can set these by dragging the corresponding shape to whichever. You have 2 shapes per, and it goes between those 2. So these, you can see, are represented by musical notes, these triggers. So I guess that'd be like a quarter note. And then you have, what is this? Is this an 8th? No, that wouldn't be an 8th. That'd be a 16th note. So on and so forth. So you can see it right here. All right. And then this is how it works. You just drag them up, drop it in. Something like that. And maybe you want. All right. They have ARPs. You can do MIDI hold. There is a magic dice. It's a different shape. And what it does is basically plays randomly all of these different ones. So it'll just be picking random ones throughout it. Then you have your sequencer settings, which has the swing in it, and the ability to record MIDI. So you could record the MIDI and then drag it to the timeline and put it on another, maybe another drum track or whatever you have going on. These little tabs that exist up here. And by the way, you can clear all steps before I move on. These tabs take you through the settings, so you can randomly adjust the velocity or manually adjust the velocity of each thing in here. So let's say you're here. So you can come in, hit the random. There's mutes down below. You can either mute them or not mute them. Then you have the gate length, the note delay, and then the trigger portion, which you can adjust. And the musical types is basically just showing you where everything exists. And then you got each one of the notes individually. And then these are pretty much the same triggers for these. You can change the octave. So you want to use the octave there. And then they tell you the corresponding Z or X. And then C or V changes the velocity. Now B will give you random triggers. So you hit it and you see it changes the triggers up there randomly. N will adjust the sample. So if you get that, the sample could change. Hit it again. Hit it again. Do you find a sample like, right? I'll show you the sampler in a second. And then there's the mutes. And then this magic dice here, I think randomly it's O. Just changes. I'm sorry, it's 0, not O. And randomly throw in dice. So here's a magic dice one, just so you can see what it sounds like. Hit number 3. So if you really want some weird, unabstract, don't know what you're going to get type thing, the magic dice plays a vital role in that. And if you just click magic dice, then it'll, on the shapes here, it'll randomly throw one in somewhere. Okay, back to the sampler. So here's your 8 samples. You can open up the sampler here and pull samples in, but it also supports drag and drop. So you can literally go over to whatever you have. Let's see. It's my drum folder right there. Pick some samples that you like and just drag them in. Even drop them there and they'll still show up. See, so now you have these 2 samples, A and B, are there, and then so you see it's picking between those 2. Single and multi. So, oh, and by the way, you have an ADSR, and then you have the ability to adjust the pitch of a sample or the gain of that sample. And then one shot versus like your classic mode. So multi versus single means instead of having 8 samples, you could just have 1 sample. You know what would be cool here? I thought about this as I was doing this. You could, if you could have, like, let's say you pick a sample that's not a drum sample, for instance, or you could do like a drum break. Let's find a drum break. Let's find a drum break. Okay, that'll work. So let's say you put this in, and it would allow you to separate on the transients or whatever you want to call it. It allows you to chop them on the transients. That would be, because right now it just plays for however long it's gonna hold for. But imagine if you could do that. Like if you could just take a sample here and just throw it in and chop it up. Loop there, that would be a good one. So right now it's just playing that first little part of it. But if it could just randomly play portions of it, that would be pretty cool. Anyway, that was just something that crossed my mind. Moving on. So yeah, so the samples versus using the multi. Okay. So back to the single, you see what you get. Multi here. So. And it's weird how it saves that sample in there. So you could leave it in and pick something else. Maybe throw a fill in. But anyway, back to the multi. So that's the basis of it. Of course, I showed you if you click this and you can play something and it'll so if you hit here, now just drag it to a timeline and there you have the MIDI. Just that simple. And it's really nice actually to have that in these type of apps because it allows you to create something and immediately put it on a timeline, right? And mind you, I'm playing all of this off the QWERTY keyboard, so it's not like I'm sitting here on an actual MIDI controller doing this. And you can get some crazy rhythms that you would not be able to typically play on a QWERTY keyboard without drawing in manually each of these type of notes to rhythmically get this. All right. So this is just one example of it. You throw that one in, it's got more magic dice in it. And the magic dice are really unique in its own way. When you want those really crazy, wild, percussive, like kind of. They're actually kind of my favorites for this. Yeah. Stuff like that I like. Because these are rhythms I would not come up with on my own. I'm not a drummer. And if I'm on the QWERTY keyboard alone, I definitely cannot drum on this. I mean, I could do some simple like that, but that's kind of a basic beat. It's not really nothing special, but to be able to hold down a trigger and come up with something pretty unique. So anyway, that's what it does. Now, this is just for being able to use the samples within it. There is, like I said before, let me go back to it, plugins. There is the effects version of it. Now, what the effects does is, let's say I have these drums right here. I'm going to pick the hats just because that's your typical one. I could set this to in and then set this to the rhythm box on both of these. This is just Ableton's way of doing it. If you have a different DAW, it may be a little different. It's like putting it on your effects rack, right? And then what you can do is just grab some drums. So let's grab a hat. We'll just pick something from, that'll be fine. Put this here, set it on a one shot. And now you can use Rhythm Box rhythms to create rhythms using this hat. Now, Ableton's a little different with this, but you have to hold command to have two on record. If you use a different device or a different DAW, I should say, then it probably will be a little bit different. But for some reason, they have to fix this too. This is a little error. I should be able to click off of this and look at different tracks. And as long as these records are on, it should be playing. But you can see I'm pressing the button right now and it's not doing it unless I'm on it. So that's a nice little rhythm. So and then drag it over, and now you have, I don't know what these time signatures up here are doing, but yeah, we don't need you. Hit that, then you have a little loop. Now you might say, why would I spend money on this when you could just create in Ableton? You have like rhythm seeds and stuff like that. So let's say you picked C2. You could do something like this, stretch out, and then just generate some notes. Or see, that didn't work out too well. you could generate some random pattern. Why is it still going there? Hold up. We'll just delete that. Option 2. Okay, cool. Now generate. There we go. You could generate some different patterns just doing this. So, but I'll tell you in a second. It's amazing using this, and I use it a lot. But I can tell you now, that doesn't sound to me as rhythmic as this. So yeah, you could generate stuff in Ableton and different DAWs, probably like similar to this, but it takes a lot more work and forethought in it than just pressing a button and it works. And if you're a drummer, this probably don't even apply to you. You probably shouldn't even be watching this video because you already know you got that down. Like you already, that's your skill, right? So this is for people like myself who are not drummers, who are not maybe who struggle with creating new ideas for drumming and stuff like that. I think it tailors or caters itself to that. Also, for those that don't have a keyboard MIDI controller. And by the way, this is on sale right now as we speak for like $9. I think even off sale, it's only like $29. So it's not super expensive for it. And it works in standalone too. So you can not even have a DAW and use it in standalone to create MIDI tracks and things of that nature. So it's a really cool device. And another thing I was thinking about when I was looking, of course I'm getting 1,000 messages. When I was looking at this was you can, that's the reason why they have 8 patterns is you can create yourself some other patterns. So let's say you like the first one you did, but now you're looking for something different. And maybe you want to create another pattern. You could go into it, do the magic dice again. Maybe that's not it. Just a swing if you want. Okay, and then hit MIDI record. Drag it to there. Now you have another 4 bars. So this is simple rhythm. So maybe you have this rhythm for your verse, and then you have this rhythm for the chorus. So something simple, which this is easy to draw in, but then so something this simple, maybe you wouldn't use this for. I personally wouldn't. I would use it for something that is more like these random rhythms that I can't create. I could easily draw in a simple rhythm. Maybe not with the swing as much. So that's kind of nice. You could put the dynamics and the swing into it. Maybe crank that swing up. So that's kind of cool. You could always go in and adjust even some of like the note delays on them. Maybe put a little more delay on it. You want a real heavy type. So there's the ability to transpose. If you mess up, if you look around on here, all of these have these arrows to go back. So let's say you found something, then you tried something else, but you want to go back, you can do that. And up here too, the same thing. If you adjust something, you can go forwards or backwards to redo, or it's basically like redo and undo. That's what it is. All right, so and of course this isn't the only sound that you have in here. You could go let's try see what this one does. So really in here the sounds don't matter as much. You use a default, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that you just, because we're using the sounds here, right? This is the effects. So we're just using whatever sounds you placed. So this isn't using a multi. In fact, you see there's no multi down here. It just shows the global assign. So, and the effects, that's a little bit different. See, MIDI effects version. So you're just affecting whatever you have here. If you like the multi, where you can bring in a bunch of samples and it play between different samples, then that's the regular version or the AU version or VST version, however you want to term it. So that's it for this plugin. It's $9. If you get it for $9, I think it's a steal. Would I pay $30 for it? Maybe. I'm not in need of anything like that personally. For $30, I think it's a bit much for myself. But I think at $9, I mean, you can't beat that. That's a steal. So you got to get it while it's cheap. If you don't buy it right now, I would say buy it during Black Friday. Maybe it'll be on sale again. But if you think it might be something you could want down the line, Plugin Boutique, $9, just grab it and save yourself the headache from having to worry when it goes back up to $30, or even thinking about it later if you see somebody do something cool with it that intrigues you. All right, that's it for this video.